Call to order this meeting of the Centerville Board of Education for Monday, October 26, 2020. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sternwell. Here. Dr. Rohr.
Here.
Mr. Schroeder.
Here.
Megan Stark. Here. Mr. Dahl.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda as presented. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Call the roll.
Mrs. Sternwell. Yes. Dr. Rohr.
Yes.
Mr. Schroeder.
Yes.
Megan Stark. Yes. Mr. Dahl.
Yes. Next item is the hearing of the public. Board of Education provides this opportunity, a convenient opportunity for the public comment before any official action is taken. Please come to the lectern. If you're an adult speaker, please give your name and address. Minors only give their name. If you ask to speak, limit your comments no more than 3 minutes. If you have other items to take care of, generally we will not engage for discussion, but direct all the comments to the superintendent. All board members can be contacted through the board office through their email address. First of all, do we have any online that requested?
No.
Anybody else want to speak? Oh, go ahead.
All subject 5777 Field Green Drive, Washington Township. I want to do three things. One, I want to commend Dr. Henderson and his staff for their prompt adjustments to COVID-19. I think they did a remarkable job in March to pivot from in-school to an online, and I think they had a great plan as far as 2021's coming. And they've had to adapt to changes of the county as far as the medical situation in the county, and as well as adapting to the needs of the parents who want to keep students in school, who don't want students in school. So all in all, I think they did a fantastic job, and I just want to take a minute to congratulate them for that. Second thing is I wanted to recognize our treasurer. A couple of months ago, our treasurer took the initiative to refinance our debt. I guess it's our bond debt that we refinanced. And if I remember correctly, the savings to the taxpayers is roughly around $1 million. And I think that's commendable to one, have taken the initiative, and two, the board to have supported that and to put money back in the taxpayers' treasury, if you would. So a great job in both cases. Also in that meeting where the refinancing was approved, there was a comment from one of the board members that there is a bond issue which is coming up in 2021, and would we be aware of it? And there was general comments by the board members that they were aware. And then the comment was made that we'd get it on the ballot early enough in case it was defeated, we'd be able to put it back on again. And what I would like the board members to address at a future meeting is why, if it's defeated, does it go on again? I mean, it seems like if you vote yes, it's okay. But if you vote no as a taxpayer, you really didn't know what you were doing. So I'm sure there's a logic to it, but I'd like to know what that is. And I would like every board member to individually address that at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Next item on the agenda is board administrative reports. Maybe you have the first of the student board reps.
Yes, you guys go ahead and come on up, please. Thank you. You might be Mr. Turkey in a minute.
Oh, is it?
Turn it on.
Turn the mic, please.
Katie, I'm a senior this year, and I just really want to thank all of our teachers for doing such a great job at incorporating both the online and the in-person students. I haven't seen any instance where I really felt excluded in the classroom. They're doing great at that. But our technological issues have been a bit more frequent than I was expecting. We've had issues with internet shutting down at school and the Zooms haven't been able to connect. We would also like to request some sort of strongly recommended or mandatory breaks in between periods, because our 2-hour periods are much too long for a lot of us to focus, especially students with ADHD. There's also been some struggles in music classes and choir classes with students who are online feeling safe enough to go in. So if there's a way to make it easier for online students to participate, that would be great.
Hi, so my name is Grace. I'm also a senior. I am attending in school, and that's what my report is on. So I think, like, logistically, the hallway traffic, there's some hallways that are one way, and it's mostly being respected, like in general, but there are still a few instances where it's not. And then mask wearing, it's okay, I'd have to say. Some teachers, students not doing it at all. And then for classes wise, like Katie said, the block classes are really challenging, especially when it comes to paying attention like towards the end of it. But what I do like about being in person, that it's a lot easier to ask questions, and I feel a lot more connected with my teachers, and so I feel like I'm learning a lot more when I'm in person. Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm June, I'm a senior. It's great to see all of you in person. It was kind of weird over Zoom. But I'm just going to be talking about my own projects today. So first of all, I'm sure a lot of you know Madison Ernest. She graduated, but she was working on a mental health project. And to just continue that project, her posters are done. They just need to be hung up. She did a beautiful job, so did the administration in helping her make them. So I'm just going to be hanging those up with some help. Then my next project is going to be working with Equal Opportunity Schools to help increase some diversity in the school. Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Zoe. I'm a junior. I'm just talking about Candy and Comments. So usually Candy and Comments is just something we use to get feedback from students about a number of different issues. Obviously this year is a little bit different, so we're not able to do it the same way. Right now we're working on a Google form that we're hoping that we can send out to schools just to get their feedback on those issues, and we're hoping that can get sent out as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We had a hard time hearing over here. Would you guys mind emailing me and save her your reports just so she has it for the notes for minutes? Thank you.
Yes.
So for the legislative report, there's not a great deal to report, which has not been uncommon for this time of year because we are in a campaign season. I did want to mention tonight that Governor DeWine signed House Bill 17. The bill allows an enhanced homestead exemption for surviving spouses of public safety personnel killed in the line of duty. Also, I want to bring to everyone's attention that there has been no movement on Senate Bill 358, even though it has had 3 hearings in September. We are watching this bill because it includes changes to the Ed Choice Scholarship Program, which are needed to be in place before February 1st, 2021, when the application window opens. There is a current quote-unquote freeze of new vouchers for another year as a result of Senate Bill 358, so Centerville should not be directly affected this year. I feel it is still important to watch what is happening with Ed Choice because we all know that even though we will not be affected right now, eventually our district could be. I do have a printout of House Bill 17 and a copy of the changes of OSBA suggestion for Senate Bill 358 if anyone would like to see those in greater detail. And that's the end of my report.
Next item on the agenda is financial update.
Good evening. I have 2 quick items just to mention to you. Our tax settlement still has not come in yet. I was hoping to have numbers for you tonight, but don't have them now. So the minute I have that information, I'll be sending that out to you to review, and then we'll talk about it at the November board meetings. The other item I just wanted to mention is back in July, I talked a little bit about the food service fund in the low cash balance because of the pandemic and the school closure. We are running negative, but I talked with John Westney and with Olivia Stone, and the USDA has approved an extension, another extension of the free meal program. So that is going to extend through the end of the 2021 school year. I also wanted to make sure that I mention this tonight because it's important that the community knows that it's a free meal for every child, breakfast and lunch, and we get reimbursement for that. And so I encourage everyone to take advantage. It will help our fund and it will feed the kids, and every kid gets a meal. There's no limitations on that. So whether you're a child that normally pays for your lunch, or if you're on free or on reduced lunch, doesn't matter, you get a free meal and the district gets reimbursement, which will help our food service fund out. Thank you.
Can students purchase additional to the free, what provided for the free meal, because other items are available?
Yes, they can purchase additional lunches or a la carte items in most of the buildings.
But that's resulting in less purchases because everyone gets free or reduced or a free meal. So less purchases mean less income coming in.
It's actually more income for us because we get the full reimbursement from the U.S. government. So it's actually better for us
You're
financially.
reimbursed for everything.
We get reimbursed for everyone, every
So
meal.
the deficit is because we get half people in the classroom.
Exactly, yes.
Right.
And so now that we're back in session, in person, we'll start to make up that difference.
So we're even getting reimbursed for those that would otherwise be on free or reduced?
Correct.
Okay, and then originally this was set to run through December or until the funds run out, and now it's extended, but I assume there's still that caveat, or until the funds run out?
I'll have to get back to you on that, to
Okay.
answer that for sure. But I assume that they have the funds since they've extended it. So
Okay.
I assume there was some legislation or something that passed, but I can get more information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, back to school update. Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Last week at the work session, I gave you just a brief overview of bringing our students back into school in person, and just wanted to again give you just a brief update now that we're entering the second week. As you know, our teachers have continued to teach both in person and also to the remote students. That is a big challenge for our teachers, and we want to thank them for that. That's a huge undertaking. That's a very heavy lift that they have to do, and they've been working hard at doing all of those kinds of things and trying to meet the needs of our students who are learning 100% remotely and also in person. For the last several days, today and started last week, we've also been challenged a little bit with some internet issues, and it's nothing that's really going on in our district. It's actually our internet service provider, and basically we've been slowed down, our system has been slowed down, or in some cases we've lost the internet, which has been challenging as well. So it's something that's been happening across the Miami Valley for many school districts that use the same provider. They're actually being challenged because it appears that somebody is kind of basically attacking their system, and so that has been a challenge for about the last 3 or 4 days. It seems to be about in the morning around 9 o'clock or so that it occurs, and obviously that's proven to be a little disruptive. But currently we have about 1,704 students that are 100% remote, which percentage-wise is about 22.4% of our students who have made the choice to learn remotely. The other change that's going on right now is that last Friday we were notified that there was additional guidance given to all public school districts. Many of you know that we are reporting positive COVID cases and quarantine numbers on our website. And last Friday we were notified that weekly quarantine numbers will only include those students or staff members who have been quarantined because of an exposure to a positive case at school. So previous to that, we were reporting any kinds of quarantines that we were aware of. So it was like at a church gathering or a family picnic or a family get-together or some kind of a gathering where people were together and there was an exposure and folks had to be quarantined that were also members of our school community. So that's one thing that was a change that occurred last Friday. The webpage does, though, still continue to include all positive cases that have been reported, whether the students or staff members are on site or if they're remote. So that will continue. So currently we have about 23 teachers that are accessing some kind of leave due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are doing telework or working remotely from home. And so we are covering those classrooms with substitute teachers. I think kind of the new normal for us is going to be that we'll be handling situations with our classrooms to provide substitute teachers for teachers who are under quarantine, and then when they come back from that quarantine, and then somebody else will go out because of another quarantine. So that's kind of going to become the new normal, I think, and the new challenge. Last week I reported to you that we had over 10 of our transportation staff that were under quarantine due to close contact to a person that tested positive on the transportation staff. And so last week was very challenging, and kudos go out to John Westney and the transportation supervisors. As I indicated last week, we knew that Miamisburg City Schools was on a fall break. We were able to borrow 3 drivers that really helped us out a lot from Miamisburg City Schools. We were able to use all of the office staff at the transportation center who do have the commercial driver's license, the CDL. They all drove. John and several of our central offices secretaries went out to transportation and manned the phones to keep the operation going. So our transportation was a little bit slower last week, but by Wednesday of this week we'll have quite a few of our drivers back, and we should be in good shape moving forward. The same kind of a scenario happened also in our student nutrition services ranks, and so we were a little challenged there as well. We were all prepared to work on the serving line and take care of whatever needed to be accomplished at that particular situation. But Olivia Stone, our Director of Student Nutrition Services, was able to cover that, and we didn't need to roll up our sleeves and help with the serving line. So again, I think we're very excited to have our students back in person. We're excited that we're moving forward in this during these unprecedented times, but it is going to be a challenging situation, and the new normal is that we're going to be dealing with these kinds of things, I think, for a while yet. So we're up to the challenge. We'll continue to work hard to do everything we can to stay in school, but those are just some of the things we're dealing with. So be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, Tom, I just want a couple of things. I know I talked to you sort of during the week about one of the issues that I came across, that we're now allowing students to basically go virtual, come back, go virtual, come back, if they so choose. When we talked about initially, way back, about a hybrid system, they were going to have to choose whether they were going to stay virtual, and if they chose it, they were going to stay that way for the quarter, which made it easier in terms of knowing who's going to be in the classroom, how many numbers, spacing, that sort of issues. Well, what I found out, and I know Tom looked at it, was that initially some of our coaches encouraged the players in terms of volleyball, some soccer, some other sports, that they should remain virtual during their season so that they didn't get COVID, and then they could just return once their season was over. I was kind of I was just sort of discouraged by hearing this, and I know, supposedly our AD, when he heard about it, talked to these coaches and put a kibosh to it, which is great, but I think the parents have picked up on this, and that's been happening. I think it sends the wrong message that we can all bring our students back, but the athletes, because they don't want to catch COVID, stay at home, and then they come back virtual when their season is over. I would encourage you to consider, maybe by the end of this month, to go back to the old system where a family needs to make a decision to stay virtual and stay virtual for the quarter, so we don't sort of take advantage of this system going back and forth. It allows the teachers to know who's going to be in the classroom on Monday versus Thursday versus Friday. I think that's the right thing to do, and I don't think we should be using the system for sports to protect our athletes, or anyone who wants it, whether it's band or whatever it is. So I just think we need to consider that. The other thing, I don't know if it's been looked into, is the lunch stuff. And again, I mentioned that my concern with lunch hour and the students being able to go out to lunch is that 3, 4, or 5 people are flying onto a car and going out to lunch, and when they're in that car, they're obviously not social distancing. I don't know if they're maintaining the masks. They're going out. So I know I'd ask to look and see if we're still doing that, and if we can limit that to say, you want to go out to lunch, that's fine, but you can't have any passengers in your car with you unless it's a sib or a family member. And I don't know where we stand on that, but those are 2 issues I just think we should at least look at as we go forward. So this does become a problem, if we decide to continue the way we're doing it even until the third quarter of this year. So that's all I wanted to say.
Anybody else? You got a comment?
Well, thank you, Dr. Rohr. I think initially when we were looking at families making a commitment for the semester, we were looking at that separate vendor choice, and so there would be an additional cost to the district, and we needed to make families, or have families make a strong commitment, because we were going to have to pay extra for that. And when the decision was made to use our staff to do the remote, we did back off of that mandate and changed our minds with that. We also know that there will be students, unfortunately, that'll have to be quarantined, and so they'll go out for 14 days potentially, and we'll teach them remote for those 14 days, and then they'll come back, and maybe, unfortunately, some other students will go out. And so we kind of felt like it was kind of the nature of the situation that we would have some students in and out of our classrooms in person as we continued the in-person model. But we can definitely talk about that and take a look at that. I did look at the lunch situation. With allowing the students to go out to lunch, it has allowed us to, with the incorporation of the block schedule, to have 3 lunches here inside Centerville High School instead of 2, and that's been a big plus inside the building with social distancing. I have addressed that and talked with our high school administration about, and they're looking into that right now, about impressing upon the students. You're right, once they go outside of our building, we don't necessarily know exactly, for example, if they're wearing their mask and those kinds of things, but we are looking at that and working on that as well. So, thank you.
Ready to move on to treasurer's recommendations? In a motion to consider approving the September 2020 financial statements, including the monthly general fund rolling report, the monthly general fund breakdown, the monthly cash reconciliation, monthly fund activity report, in and out purchase orders approved by administration, certified by the treasurer, and supported by a resolution totaling $147,761.64. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. Need a motion to consider approving the minutes of the following Board of Education meetings: September 28, 2020, regular meeting, October 19, 2020, special meeting work session.
So moved. Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. I didn't see any reason why we couldn't take all the schedules at once, is that right? Need a motion to consider approving recommendations of the superintendent, recommending accepting resignations listed on Schedule A. Superintendent recommends the employment, change of employment status, and change of contract status for certificated personnel listed on Schedule B for the salary programs and on the effective dates given. Superintendent recommends the employment or change of employment status for support staff personnel listed on Schedule C for the salary program on the effective dates given. Superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedules D and D1 for supplemental contract or extra duty assignment. And superintendent recommends the granting of leave of absence for the personnel listed on Schedule E for the reasons on the dates given.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. Need a motion to consider approving the 2021 Board of Education meeting dates as previously discussed.
So moved. Second.
Make a comment, Dr. Henderson.
Sure. This is the kind of an annual occurrence where I sent a draft of proposed meeting dates for the Board of Education for next school, or for next year. And so basically, I think you all had an opportunity to review those and didn't see any conflicts. And so, like I said, it's an annual approval of meeting dates. Occasionally, there will be something that comes up, and we know that some of you may be on vacation or maybe out of town at various times throughout the school year, but it gives you an opportunity to put the dates on your calendar and basically be ready to go for next year. So,
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. So I have to read this entire resolution, is that what I have to do, right? Okay. Board of Education, Centerville City School District in Montgomery County, Ohio, met on October 26, 2020 at 7 p.m. The following members present: John Dahl, Vice President, Jeff Shore, Vice President, members David Orr, Megan Sparks, and Allison Bernlow. Whereas Centerville City Schools have returned to in-person instruction during the COVID-19 pandemic effective October 26, 2020. Whereas the board recognizes that its employees will be in contact with students and colleagues in the course of performing their assigned job duties, and that such contact may result in the quarantine of employees in a manner that prevents them from performing their duties. And whereas the board recognizes that its employees have the right to use emergency paid sick leave under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, that when they qualify for such leave, including the purposes of quarantine and self-isolation in relationship to COVID-19. And whereas situations may arise where employees are subject to quarantine because of exposure and contact resulting from the performance of their job duties, but those employees have already exhausted their FFCRA leave. And whereas the board desires to treat its employees equitably and fairly when they are unable to work or telework because of the contact with and exposure to students and colleagues at work who have or are suspected of having COVID-19, and those employees have exhausted their FFCRA leave, and particularly those employees whose job duties do not allow them to work remotely. Now therefore be it resolved as follows: board employees are unable to work or telework because of their exposure to contact with students or co-workers who either have or are expected to having COVID-19 or have already exhausted their FFCRA leave, emergency paid leave, shall be eligible for paid quarantine leave for the duration of their district-approved quarantine leave as set forth in this resolution. Indeed, the quarantine must be due to exposure or contact occurring in the course of the employee's performance of their contractual job duties. The superintendent or his designee may require an employee who has been directed to quarantine because of COVID-19, but who is not experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, to telework in lieu of receiving paid quarantine leave. Board members shall not be eligible for paid quarantine leave for any other reason, including the employee's need to self-isolate because of a family member has been exposed to or diagnosed with COVID-19 or is exhibiting symptoms, or where the employee is otherwise exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, or due to an employee's personal travel. Employees who do not qualify for paid quarantine leave may use their other applicable available leave for their absence pursuant to board policy in the terms of the effective master agreement between the Board of Education and the Classroom Teachers Association. Paid quarantine leave shall be paid at the employee's regular per diem rate. Paid quarantine leave provided herein shall not be available after December 31, 2020. The board directs the superintendent, the treasurer, and their designees to implement and administer paid quarantine leave to board employees consistent with the provisions set forth here. Need a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? I know we went over this in our last meeting. Dr. Hendricks, you got anything else?
Nothing really, Mr. Dahl, except that, again, as the times that we're in right now, we know that staff members may have to quarantine, and basically, if they can continue their job obligations and fulfill those obligations by teleworking or what have you, we would like to support them and be able to provide quarantine leave for them. So,
Call the roll.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. Call the roll.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rohr?
Yes.
Mr. Schreier?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes. We are adjourned.
You are one.